Hi, this is Georgia again with Puking Pastilles. This segment we will discuss how to trace and cut out your pattern pieces to get ready for cutting your fabric. This is an October design pattern. This has several different patterns on one page. Basically, one color is assigned to each pattern, so all of the blue lines are for one pattern piece. You're going to take some tracing paper or tissue paper and you'll trace the size that you need of each piece. So I'm going to look at this blue sleeve here because I want the blue pieces, and there are numbers down here that tell you where each piece is. And I'm just going to trace the size that I need onto my tissue paper. And be sure to put in all the markings, and I write what pattern it's for and what size it is and which magazine it's out of, so I don't find it later and have no idea what it is. Quick Sew also comes in this format where you have to trace and you have to add seam allowances to these patterns. There's no seam allowance, so after you've drawn it, you can go in and add a seam allowance, whatever size you want to do to it, or you can just do that as you're cutting. I usually do it as I'm cutting, but it'd be better to trace it before you cut. Another way to trace onto tracing paper is you can get a tracing wheel. It has little spikes around the wheel, and you just run it along the lines and it'll put tiny little dots into your tracing paper. It'll also put dots in your pattern, but it won't ruin it, and then you can cut along the dots with your fabric. If you're using a commercial pattern and some PDF patterns, you're going to have multiple pieces on one piece of paper. So the first thing you'll need to do is cut apart those pieces just in these blank areas so that you can work with those pattern pieces. You want them to all be separate before you start working with them. If you're sewing a clothing pattern, you're going to have several sizes on one pattern piece. If you have bought a PDF pattern, you can cut the smallest size and then reprint it every other time you want to use it. With other patterns, you don't have that luxury, and so I'm going to show you several methods you can use to preserve this original pattern. One of them is to just take tissue paper or tracing paper and trace the sizing you need directly onto it. So I'm going to trace, let's see, the size 2 with a pencil. You can also use a tracing wheel. You can buy it at the fabric store. It's a little metal wheel with spokes around it, and you just run it along the lines that you need to trace, and it puts tiny little dots in both the paper and in your pattern. So you can take your paper off and cut it along the dotted lines. I think a pencil works just fine. You can also use freezer paper. You just buy it at the grocery store. You take a big piece, obviously enough to cover your whole pattern piece, and trace your pattern piece onto the paper side of the freezer paper. Trace the whole thing, and then you iron it, the sticky side down onto your fabric, and then you cut it out. That way you don't have to pin, and some people really like to do that. Now, because this is a PDF, I'm just going to cut the size that I need, which is size 3, and you can see here there are two views, view B and view A. View B is what I want to do because I want to have a contrasting band on the bottom of the pant legs. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out directly on the cutting lines. You're going to repeat this with all of your other pattern pieces, and then you're ready to cut your fabric. Now, what I love about PDF patterns, and the reason why I think they've become so popular on the internet, is because you can print it and cut the size that you need. I cut a size 3 on this. Well, let's say tomorrow I need a size 4. I can print it out again and cut the size 4. With a commercial pattern, you can't do that. You have to trace it over and over. This really cuts out all that work, and it makes it easier for you. And you can find many other PDF patterns in my shop just like this.